Hey, this is Cameron, and welcome to the practice log. Well, it's another morning session. Whoa, I know. Alright, well, as usual, there's a lot to do today, so let's go ahead and jump into it, shall we? Alright, getting back to it. Feels pretty good. I'm feeling a bit better this morning than the last couple, so that's good. Yeah, so for today, we're gonna primarily focus on the Bach, of course. I was kind of phoning it in the last one, so now I think this is gonna be the first session where I really try to get some stuff done. Obviously, the Adagio needs to be memorized, so I'm going to focus on that. The Presto needs to be learned, and then I'm just going to run through the Fugue and Siciliana. I guess also the Store Mozart variations. That's what's to do today. Pretty cool. Well, I have been taking this time to answer comment questions, so let's take a look at the comments section. Okay, here's a pretty good one. This isn't really a hardball, but it does make me reflect on everything I've done up to this point, so that's kind of good. This is from Manuel Gonzalez. What's up? How's it going? Manuel, you always post your location, and it seems like you're in a different place every time you do it. Like, I think I saw Tijuana one time, and then there was somewhere else in California that you said. You're really moving around, man. But you asked, hair looking good. Good way to start it off, man. Thank you. What method book did you use to help you progress? That's a great question, because I actually see that a lot now. I'm seeing a lot of people using, like, method books and stuff, and their, like, grades and all that. I never did any of that, and I never used that for my students. The way that I started with guitar, which I've talked about this a little bit briefly, I started playing rock guitar. There was a couple of years where I was just learning songs, like just your typical rock songs that everybody learns. And then once I hit high school, I just practiced scales for like an hour a day for like 3 years straight. And that's pretty much where I built up all of my left hand and picking chops. And then from there, I didn't start playing classical until I was 19, and I'm 25 now, so it's been that long. I just started with my professor in college, and we just started with etudes, like easy pieces, and we just kind of progressed on that. I can tell you that the first stuff that I worked on like a lot of Cariuli, like that one, like I remember a big formative piece, like that one. That one. I think that's Cariuli. It's either Cariuli or Carcassi. I forget. I'd have to look through to tell you exactly all the etudes I started with. I was already pretty advanced on guitar. Like, I had taken, like, advanced jazz classes and stuff, so I knew my way around a guitar. And I never learned how to read music from a method book either. I just knew all the notes on the guitar already. And though I had never used sheet music to learn pieces, I knew how to read music from playing cello and also the jazz classes. So I just kind of put two and two together. It was slow at first, of course, but after learning all those etudes, you kind of get used to the different positions that you might play in and stuff. I didn't use a method book though. And I don't use a method book for any of my students either. I kind of just send them through the same way that I went through. Well, I do start with a method book, not one that we progress on though. Right now I'm just using the Mel Bay, like grade 1, and right when we get to where we're reading all 6 strings and they know all the notes, even before then, sometimes I'll start with just the first 4 strings, and we'll just figure out the other ones later, like when we're reading music that's not in the book. That is when we leave the book, and I tell them to just discard it. We never need it again. That's done. We're not doing that anymore. So we just use that to get the absolute essentials. And once I'm ready, I would like to make a method book. I don't think I would do one that goes past like grade 1, because I don't even think you need anything past grade 1, because once you have the essentials, I think you should just move on to just learning progressively harder etudes, like Sora, Carcassi, all that. So that's besides the point though. That's kind of a future project that I have kind of started drafting a little bit in my head. Like, I know how I would set it up. But so I started with Sor, the easier Sor, Carcassi, and Cariuli, just the easier ones. And then from there, I moved on to Villalobos preludes. I learned the first prelude, which that was an appropriate piece for my level at the time. And then I learned the second prelude, which was a little harder than I should have been learning, but I learned it anyways. And then I later learned the rest of them, except for 4 actually. I'll learn 4 one of these days. And then after those Villalobos preludes, that is when I moved on to Bach. I learned my first prelude in Fugue, which was 996. The Fugue, it's called the Presto, but it is like a fugue. And yeah, I worked pretty hard on that. And then after that, I learned all your like quintessential guitar pieces. Like, I learned like a couple of Barrios pieces and like Julia Florida. And then later, like Capriccio Arabe. I think I worked on those for like almost a year. That's when I really hammered down Villalobos Prelude 5. And I'm leaving this out, but I did a whole lot of technique practice too. I would say half or even more than half of my practice for the first like 4 years or so was technique. So a lot of Giuliani arpeggios, adagios, a lot of scales, because my right hand was completely behind compared to my left hand. So I did a lot of technique. I don't do any more technique right now. I probably should, because there's still a lot of improvements I need to make. I feel like I've kind of neglected learning pieces like during that time to focus on technique, and now I just kind of want to focus on learning a bunch of repertoire. We'll kind of come back to it later. So, you know, by the time I'm like 35 or whatever, it should be pretty balanced where I know like a ton of repertoire, and also my technique is really honed. But right now I think it's good enough. Good enough for my purposes. And I feel like my technique is getting better as I learn these pieces. So, you know, whatever. Alright, well, I think we can wrap up this section here. So, let's go ahead and get to the practice, shall we? On to the good part. Oh no, my sheet music's low on battery. Hold on. And that, kids, is why you memorize your music. So, because of that, I'm going to start with the fugue, and I'm going to play it slow to a metronome from memory, like a boss. And then the main focus will be memorizing the adagio, making new progress on the presto, and yeah. Alright, I'll see you on the other side. So, I pretty much worked on everything. I didn't focus as much on the presto as I wanted, but I did get some pretty decent work done with the adagio, so I am happy with that. So, why don't I bring you closer and I'll play something for you. I will be reading the sheet music for the adagio, but I'm going to play the whole thing. And I forget the last time I played this, because as you may recall, I think this is the last episode I'm going to mention that I'm having a rough time right now, so I took like a couple day break. To you, there was no break, but here's what we got. Alright, and that was the Adagio. I'm getting a little looser with it, you know, trying to make it sound more improv-y. Well, that pretty much concludes my practice for this morning. Let's make our way to the computer and do something else for a while, shall we? Well, I guess while we're here, and it is a morning session after all, we might as well just cover chords, just to talk about what they are. Now, it said that a chord is a combination of 3 or more notes. I disagree with that, because, like, what do you call this? Sounds pretty chordy to me. But a triad is certainly a 3-note chord. Tri as in triangle. Now, the main part of this lesson, we're just going to focus on triads. This is the harmony. This is actually the building blocks. Everything that we've put together are building blocks to make these building blocks. And when we put these building blocks together, that's how we get harmony. So let's talk about it. So here are the 4 different qualities of triad. We can have major, we can have minor, diminished, and we can have augmented. We get each of these by stacking 2/3 onto each other. And what I mean by that is if we take our scale C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, we start with a root C, and we stack a 1/3 on top of that. Well, that's a 1/3. And then from E, we stack another 1/3. What we have there is a triad. All of these are made in that way. Now, here is what's required for a major triad. You need a major 1/3 and a minor 1/3 stacked on each other. So essentially for a major triad, we need a root, and we go 4 half steps higher, and then from that note, we go 3 half steps higher. And if you remember our shapes thing with the intervals, if we have C, which is right here, that's what the major 1/3 looks like. And then a minor 1/3 on top of that. Which, remember how like major kind of sounded that particular way, and then minor is very different. When you stack them like this, it becomes a little less obvious. So within every major chord, there is a minor 1/3. And just to find them here, if we take C, E, that's 4. All right, E to F, that's 1. F to G, that's 2. So that's our minor 1/3. So if we're in C major and we make a triad, starting with our first note as the root of that triad, we will end up with a major triad. And that's the case for all major keys. So this will apply to every single major key that you're in. Oh, and something that I want you to notice here. A major 1/3 is 4, minor 1/3 is 3. If you add them together, that equals 7. All right, now for the minor 1/3, we flip them around. We take a minor 1/3, and then we stack a major 1/3 on top of that. Minor 1/3 plus a major 1/3. Where can we find that? Well, let's start on D. So the second note of C major. D, E, F. We established earlier that that's 3, so that's a minor 1/3. And then F to A, that's a major 1/3. Boom, there we go. So if I were to play D, F, A, D, F, A. So C, E, G, D, F, A. All right, there we go. Now we're making chords. And now let's cover diminish, because major, minor, and diminish, those are the 3 qualities that occur in the major scale without having to manipulate stuff. Oh yeah, and before I go on to diminished, minor plus major, that's 7. It's the same thing. For diminished, it's a minor 1/3 plus a minor 1/3, which I'll go ahead and say equals 6. This is the first triad where our sum is different now. Where does a diminished triad occur? If we were to take B, which is the 7th note of the major scale, I'll actually draw on D there. B to C, that's 1. C to D, that's 2. So that equals 3. And then D to F, just like here, that's another 3. Minor 1/3. 3 plus 3, that is our diminished triad. And that sounds like this. Boom. B diminished, C major, D minor. Now, those are the 3 qualities that you'll get if you pick any of these root notes and build a chord. This is remedial music theory, so I am going to give you remedial strategies. Here's a way you can remember the quality of every single root in a major scale. Let's base everything off of C major, because, you know, we're idiots. That's what we do. Major is happy. Okay, I think we've established that, right? Minor is sad. I know people who are gonna cringe at me saying that, but screw you, I don't care. So, minor is the sad one. If the root of your triad is in the word dead, so D-E-A-D, D, E, and A, those are all the roots of the minor triad. If we spell a triad on D, we get D, F, A. That's a minor triad, D minor. E, G, B, and A, C, E, that's a minor triad. So in other words, in a major scale, the 2, the 3, and the 6 are all minor. And if they're not minor, that means something funky is happening, and we'll get to what that's called later. So what that leaves here, C, F, G, you'll notice that all the minor and diminished ones, those are lowercase. All right, now Now, what that leaves us with, C, E, G, F, A, C, and G, B, D, that's also major, that's a chord built on the 5. And we're going to represent those with uppercase Roman numeral, so 1, 4, and 5. Now, you might be wondering, Cameron, you left out 7. I did. 7 is the oddball. That's our diminished chord. So I'll go ahead and put it here, B, D, F. So when we spell a triad, starting on the 7th note of the major scale, that's going to be your diminished chord. And we represent that with a lowercase 7, and we put a little circle next to it like that, and that means diminished. Those are your 7 chords that exist in a major scale. And let's actually hear what they all sound like. We have C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, E diminished, and then back to C major. And those are all of the diatonic chords in C major. I left out one quality. It's augmented. What is even left if augmented's going to be a triad, so it has to be a combination of 2 thirds? The only thing that's left is a major third plus a major third. I can't show you a root where they start because they don't exist naturally in a major scale. If you remember from the scale lesson, harmonic minor, that is where you can find an augmented chord. And here's what it sounds like. So if we think about harmonic minor, it was C major, but we start on A, and then we have a G sharp. We would get an augmented chord if we then built a chord on C, E, G sharp. Sounds like this. Let's move past that for now, because I don't think we're going to encounter that for a while, and we defined it, we know what it is. You're much more likely to find diminished chords, though, because they are kind of essential for a 5th quality that I left out. Now, these are all of our triads, okay? There's one more super important chord, the dominant 7. So the dominant 7 is the engine of harmony. If we have tension and release, the dominant 7 is the tension. And now, you might be thinking diminished and augmented sounded pretty tense. Well, you can find elements of both of those in the dominant 7. So it's kind of this all-encompassing pushing chord. And here's how you build it. You start with a major third, and then a minor third, and that's not all. You need to stack one more minor third. Now, how do we get a chord like that? It exists in the major scale. If you start on the 5th note, G, all right, that's our major third, that's 4 half steps. Then B to D, that's our minor third, if we imagine a B over here. And then D to F, that's our other minor third. Okay, there we go. This is not a triad. This is a triad with one extra note on top of it. Here's what that sounds like. That's a dominant chord. And what I mean by it being the engine of harmony, listen to how it resolves. Like that. Now, we'll talk about exactly how they resolve later, but as long as we know how to construct them, we should be alright. We're still kind of covering like basics, so maybe this will be like a 5-part series. Next, we'll need to cover inversions, and then I think the next thing that we should do is maybe analyze like an easy etude or something, because it wants to do an analysis of O Canada. I'm good. Let's do an etude or something. I think that'd be way more fun. Alright, let's go ahead and wrap this thing up. Let's do the outro. Alright, well, that pretty much concludes this practice session. You know, if you made it this far and enjoyed all that, be sure to subscribe, leave a like, all that stuff. And if you have any questions about anything, feel free to leave them in the comments, or if you don't have any questions, that's fine too. You can just say anything. Alright, well, it's time for me to start my day, so I will see you tonight.